Hello, Assalamu alaikum guys. This is your third lecture for your mid semester. That is about the ferrous metals. Today we will discuss. Mean any metals, those are going to be including iron in it as a component. So if the iron metals are going to be discussed today, then with the different percentage of the iron, then we may have the different type of the metals, and depending upon their properties, their use in construction, in building, the construction of the buildings will be different. So we will start from the metals today. First of all, we will discuss about the ferrous metals and the non-ferrous metals. So we may have different type of the metals. We may have aluminium, that is non-ferrous metal. We may have brass, that is non-ferrous metal. We have cast iron, that is ferrous metal. Then we may have steel, we may have copper, we have metal sludge, we may have bronze. So out of these, the cast iron and the steel is considered to be as the ferrous metals, with the different percentage of the carbon and the iron contents into it. So if we are going to be talk about the construction purpose, then this aluminium, brass and copper, those are, and bronze also, those may be used in the construction purpose, but not as in building or the structural component. If we talk about the structural components, then for designing a building, then we need a proper designed material, ferrous metals or the ferrous material, that is going to be called as steel. Steel is going to be used as the proper as in construction material in to design or to analyze any structural component. So you can use the steel as a beam, you can use the steel as column, you can use the steel as the different you can say reinforcing element, and for the foundations, so whole over the steel frame can be cast, can be formed, can be designed by using the steel materials. So the different type of the bridges are constructed by using the steel material, and within the building you may have beams, you may have columns of steel, and even if the whole building is a steel building, industrial buildings are mainly of steel, so you may have the foundations also made up of steel, and the roofing system is of steel, and any bracing system that you are providing to brace two columns of the frame, those are also be of steel. So different type of the sections are available in different shapes with different properties in the market, and once you will be familiar with the properties of the steel, then depending upon those properties you can go and you can buy or purchase, you can order a designed one and steel, and you can use in the construction. So first of all, we will discuss about the iron. So iron ores, you are well familiar with that in the previous levels, like in FSC intermediate level, you have been discussing these iron ores in detail, and how to extract the iron from the iron ore. This whole procedure also you have been discussed. So today for our scope, that will be a quick review. We are not going to be discussed in detail because already you are familiar with these iron ores, and the other type of the iron ores other than that listed over here, you can also search in the any literature on net like this. So but with the larger percentages, till 40% of the iron contents, we are going to be going for these iron ores like magnetite. Magnetite is containing 70 to 75% of the iron in it. Hematite contains 70%, limonite contains 60%, iron pyrite contains 47%, siderite contains 40%. So these are the different type of the ores and its shape. You can see the siderite, the pyrites, the magnetite and the limonite. So these can be containing these iron contents. Okay, so depending upon those, you can take out or you can just extract these ores from the sources, the mine sources, and then you can go towards the industry, and this industry is going to be responsible to further extract the pure iron out of these iron ores. So extraction of the iron ores from extraction of iron from the iron ores, these will be, again as I have told you, will be a quick review. The fundamental chemical principle of extraction of the iron from the iron ore is heating the ore in the presence of reducing agent, which will result in the formation of carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide liberated as gas and the metallic iron. Finally, you can get the metallic iron, pure iron. So this process is called as smelting. Smelting is the process of extracting metal from its ore from heating and melting. So whatever we have told. So if we are going to be more briefly, you are going to be discuss about the extraction of the iron from the iron ores, then very briefly you can write this procedure. And these going to be include so many levels, so many procedures, so many steps involved inside of these 1 or 2 3 lines, and there is a whole industry involved in it that is going to be make this smelting process possible, and you can get the iron from the iron ores. So finally you can get the pig iron, the different type of the ferrous metal, that's what I have told you. So those may be the pig iron, cast iron, wrought iron, steel and alloy steel. So depending upon the different percentage of the carbon in it and the iron contents in it. So how the pig iron is going to be extracted? So the very first step, that these steps first to two will be almost the same. You are crushing the ore first of all, then you are doing calcination of the ore, then smelting in a blast furnace, addition of the limestone as flux, molten iron collected in molds in the form of pegs. Okay, so finally you are getting the pig iron in that particular form shown in the figure. This is the figure on right hand side that is going to show you the blast furnace for the manufacture of the pig iron. So here you can see the diagram in which you may have the different phases and different levels of this blast furnace in which the different temperatures can be maintained. So on one side you may have the molten iron and the slag, mean all of the impurities in the form of the slag you can collect on the other side of the blast furnace, and you may have the hot burnt gases discharge out of the blast furnace, and you may have the different temperatures levels. So you are going to be inputting all of your ores from this side into the blast furnace. Those are going to be moving inside the blast furnace by passing through different temperatures, and finally you are getting at the bottom of the blast furnace the molten iron, and then you are getting the slag on the other side. So if we talk about the pig iron, so in construction point of view, we must know about the different properties of the pig iron at first. So you are these pig irons are classified as Bessemer, grey foundry, white or forge, or molted pig irons. These are the industrial names of different types of the pig irons. It is hard and brittle. If we talk about the pig iron properties, so we must be having that particular properties. Those are going to be help us to understood that whether this type of the ferrous metal be used in construction, and if it is used, then for which purpose we are going to be using, what is the type of the strength we are getting by this type of the ferrous metal like pig iron, and then where and for what purpose we can use this pig iron. So it is hard and brittle. So where we need the hardness, we can use the pig iron, but where we need the ductility, brittleness mean the material that is going to give you very less warning before the failure. It is going to be failed just after the load has been applied. So very smaller stress strain curve you may get. So let's suppose if we talk about the stress strain curve, mean the load and deflection behavior of the material under the loading. So if the load is going to be divided with the cross-sectional area of the material or the metal, it will give you the stresses, and your deflections are divided by the original length of the metal. It is going to give you the strains. So if you talk about the percentage strains and we draw on the horizontal axis, and the stresses we are going to draw on the vertical axis, these are going to be called as stress strain curve. So generally the stress strain curve for any type of the metal will give you at start a very straight line, meaning the very linear curve. That linear line is going to show you the linear relationship between stress and strain curve till the Hooke's law persists, or Hooke law exist. So wherever the stress and strain are going to give you the linear relationship, that will be the elastic limit, and Hooke's law will be applicable in that particular region. And after the Hooke's law is not applicable, mean the stress strain will be no more be linear, then what is going to be happen? There will be a non-linear relationship between stress and strain curve, and you will get this type of the curve. Okay, so if after the non-linearity you are not getting you are getting the very sudden you can say rupture, I mean you have the ultimate, and after the ultimate very small curve you are getting, and finally you are getting the rupture. Okay, the rupture strain is very less as compared to the elastic strain. If we talk about the difference between the elastic strain, this will be the elastic strain, EE we can represent it, and this will be the rupture strain. Let's suppose here the material has been ruptured, so it is called as ER. Another you can say criteria, or you can say way is method is to check the ductility of the material is the area under the curve, stress strain curve. So if the area under the stress strain curve will be more, then we can say that our material is more ductile, and if it is less, then we can say it is brittle. So let's suppose another material is going to give you stress strain curve that is failing over here. Okay, its ER is here, so we can say that the second material, this is ER2, let's suppose this is ER1. So if here you are getting for one type of the material the rupture strain, and here you are getting for second type of the material rupture strain, then this second material will give you the more ductility, and it will be the brittle. Okay, so in this way we can talk about the hard and softness is other thing. Your brittle material can be hard, can be soft. Your ductile material can be hard, can be soft. So there are other things those are involved in the hardness of any type of the materials, or other factors those are you can say dominating the hardness of the material. So this pig iron is strong in compression, in weak in tension. So if we are going to have this metal, and you are just using this metal for the compressive loads, then it will be okay, it can carry the compressive loads. But if that metal is going to be used in any construction purpose for to take the tensile loads, okay, the tension, so it is going to be failed, it will be weaker. So for very larger tensile loads you cannot use the pig iron. Cannot be magnetized and tempered. Okay, so you cannot magnetize. It's a good property that you cannot magnetize it, because you are using the steel as a construction material and it is totally non-magnetized material. And it cannot be tempered because it is a brittle material. So for the brittle material you cannot mold it, or you cannot, you can say, change the shape. Let's suppose if this is the simple rod and you want to change the shape of this rod, so for the brittle material it will be very difficult to change the shape of it. But if it will be a ductile material, then you can bend it, or you can mold it, or you can revert it into any other, transform it any other shape. Okay, so it may be like zigzag or any other kind of the shape, like C shape, like W shape, I shape. Okay, so any shape you can form by using the ductile material. But for the brittle material it will be very hard, so it do not rust. Again, it's a positive thing, it's a good benefit of it. It does not rust. It cannot be welded, so it's not good for the construction purpose, because we need all the time for the construction elements the welding or riveting or bolting. I mean, connections are provided. So we want to, let's suppose if the beam is going to be there and beam is needed to be connected with the column, so you need a connection over here at that particular place. So for the connection purpose you need to provide the welding. So welding cannot be provided efficiently for the pig iron. So it contains 3 to 4% of the carbon, 0.5 to 3.5% of silicon, 0.5 to 2% of manganese, 0.02 to 0.1% sulfur, and 0.03 to 1% phosphorus. So used in the column base plates usually, and door brackets. So main construction component like beam and columns we cannot use the pig iron, but where the lesser loads are there, so for the column base plates, for the foundations of the column base plate, that is a part of the foundation, that is not all the foundation, that is part of the foundation, interconnected element between the column and the main concrete foundation. And the door brackets, you are familiar with that. If wherever the doors are there, then in between the brackets are provided, and those brackets can be made up of pig iron. Similarly, cast iron, your pig irons are remelted with the limestone and coke, poured into the molds of the desired shape and sizes. Cast iron contains carbon as either combined carbon or as a free carbon. So you may have the cast iron, and again almost the same, you have a capilla furnace, or for the manufacture of the cast iron you may have the pig iron you can use. Okay, so this pig iron is remelted with the limestone and coke. So these are the kind of the furnace that can be used for the remelting of the pig iron, and finally you are getting the cast iron. Okay, So this carbon in the cast iron may be in the combined or maybe free carbon. So that you can read by yourself. Okay, so casting of the cast iron after getting from the furnace, you may have the sand casting, you may have the hollow casting, you may have centrifugal casting, you may have the die casting. These are different methods. This table shows the classification of the cast iron, in which the type is classified as the grey, white cast iron, malleable, mottled, chilled, toughened. So depending upon these, the properties are written in this column, and this composition is also given with respect to the carbon percentages, silicon percentages, phosphorus, and like in white it's carbon, silicon, manganese, phosphorus, sulfur, and in grey it's carbon percentages given, silicon, manganese, sulfur, and likewise. So here you do not be given with the percentages. It may be simple cooling it, mean any cast iron that is mottled and chilled and toughened. Okay, so main is these three. Okay, first three categories. So you can see rest of the purposes where you can use it. So you can use the grey type of the cast iron in pipes, in fittings, locomotive wheels, in machine beds. And the white you can use in the manufacture of the malleable iron, like wrought iron. Further you can use to make the wrought iron, another type of the ferrous metal. And automobile, agricultural equipments, railroad engineering, the malleable one. Malleable mean you can change its shape. Okay, you can mold it into any other shape. Then comes cast iron. This is the most before the steel, or you can say this is the second one mostly used type of the cast iron, and the wrought iron, two type of the ferrous metals so can be used. So this cast iron is hard and brittle, almost the same property of the pig iron, that is strong in compression and weak in tension and shear. That is again same as of pig. Specific gravity is 7.50. It's a little bit larger. Cannot be magnetized. Again the same property. Used for making ornamental castings such as wall brackets, lamppost, etc., and pipes, sewers, manholes, cover sanitary fittings, etc. It is the basic material for manufacturing the wrought iron. That is the main you can say thing that can be used for the further construction purpose. And the mild steel, also used in machine parts subjected to shocks. So a little bit better properties than the pig iron, and you can use it for the different more variety of the purposes in the fields you can use. Defects in the cast iron, it has checks, mean the iron with the high sulfur contents may have the small cracks running in transverse or longitudinal directions. They are due to the greater shrinkage and lack in the strength. Segregation, due to the presence of the high phosphorus contents, carbon and silicon may segregate in a manner that interior portion of the metal are white and exterior are grey. Blowholes you may get within the cast iron that produce due to the improper venting of the molds due to high proportion of the sulfur. Coarse or open grain structure, and the spongy spot and cold shuts. You can read it by yourself. These are the list of the different defects you may have in the cast iron, and due to these you cannot use it is for the main construction or the construction component or the structural component. Now the further cast iron can be more purified to make the wrought iron. So it is considered to be the purest form of the iron. Total impurity is limited to 0.5%. It is ductile. So other than the pig iron and the cast iron, now we have improved the properties in the wrought iron to making it ductile. It is malleable. It can be changed in any shape. It is tougher. It is moderately elastic. So specific gravity is larger. It's 7.80 as compared to the pig iron. It can be forged and welded. Can effectively resist the corrosion, can be alloyed with the nickel, copper, and molybdenum. So it can be used by making an alloy with the other type of the metals. Used in the roof coverings, rivets, chains, ornamental works such as gates, pipes, and again the sewer lines and etc. Then comes the steel. Steel is actually not the metal, it is an alloy. So if we talk about only the metal, Then in the metal category, the wrought iron is the finest type of the ferrous metal, that is contained the more improved properties as compared to the pig iron and the cast iron. But if we talk about the alloy, so alloy of the steel is called as alloy of the ferrous metal with the other type of the metals is called as steel. So mainly what we are doing, we are considering the carbon as an alloying with, or you are combining or with the iron. So with other than the iron, the carbon contents are also present. So this is the steel can be categorized into these four major categories, that is the low carbon steel, mild steel, medium carbon steel and high carbon steel. Okay, so depending upon the carbon content percentages. So if we are going to be adding the carbon contents into a ferrous metal and making an alloy, other than the other, manganese be there, maybe sulfur, maybe phosphorus, the other type of the metals are also there, but mainly the carbon contents be there, because the carbon contents are going to be enhancing the different properties. In the coming slide we will discuss. So what you have to remember, these percentages, these are very important. You have to be memorize it, because the steel is the major the structural component that is going to be used to make our beams in a building, and you are using the steel material to making the columns for the proper structure system, and any other bracing system is going to be used can be designed by using the steel. So for the low carbon steel, you have the percentage of the carbon less than 0.15%, mild steel 0.15 to 0.3, medium carbon steel 0.3 to 0.8, high carbon steel 0.8 to 1.5. These are all steel is manufactured by employing the different processes on the same principle, the melting pig iron or the cast iron, oxidizing the carbon, and then some carbon and manganese are added into it to improve its properties, to make it as to use it as a construction structural component. So method of production are the Basmer process, Lintz and the Donowitz process, open heart process, electric or crucible, and duplex processes. So these processes are no need to be go in detail, just the names, or you must know, and already you know maybe. Out of these four categories, we directly come to that type of the category that is used as an structure purpose, that is called mild steel. Okay, out of these four categories, low carbon steel, mild steel, high carbon steel, we are going to be using the majority, 90% of the construction in the field has been done by using the mild steel. It is the ductile, malleable, tougher and more elastic than the wrought iron. It can be forged and welded. It can carry the losses, the energies it can absorb, the heat energies or any other. For the rivet connection, you have to do the hammering process. So for the hammering process, it should be having enough strength so that it can take up all of the you can say energies input in the material by the hammering process. So in the welding, the heating and heat energy, with the help of temperature you are providing the welding, high temperatures are involved, so the heat energy should be absorbed by the material itself. So rusts quickly can be permanently magnetized, and specific gravity is 7.30. Mild steel is used in the form of rolled sections, reinforcing bars, roof covering, sheet piles, and in railway track. Heavy tensile loads can be carried out, compressive loads, the shear strength, all type of the strengths are much more larger for the mild steel. It is the very much improved type of the steel that is an alloy, and after the ferrous metal or iron, that alloy of the mild steel is the very, you can say, good for using for the construction purpose. So rolled section means that it is malleable. So if one sheet of the steel is with you, so what you can do, you can change its shape to make an angle section. This is the L section. Okay, here it is shown in the figure. Okay, so this is the simple square rod, this is the circular rod, but here it is a box section. Here this is the rolled section. Rolled section means the simple sheet has been converted into the different sections like angle section or L section or a box section. So if larger sheet be there, so what you can do, you can mold it, okay, or you can change the shape of the sheet to make a box. Okay, so in this way it can give you the rolled sections. Reinforcing bars, in the next slide also we will discuss about that. That typical saria you are using in construction of your own buildings, and any type of the load bearing, or to cast the column and the beams, or and also for the casting of the slabs, you use the steel bars. These steel bars are also called as reinforcing bars. For the roof coverings, okay, these corrugated sheets you are using, many times maybe you have seen, made up of steel. These are used as roof covering. Sheet piles, so piles are under the foundation. If the concrete foundation is there for the very multi-story buildings, so you can have the sheet piles inserted beneath the concrete pad that may be of steel. So those are going to be providing the foundation for that particular steel building above that. So you may have columns, you may have above superstructure, and that superstructure may be reinforced within the foundation, within the soil, with the help of these piles. So these are simply the columns, those can be used as a foundation of any building. Railway tracks, you are familiar with those, so those are also requiring the large strengths. So these larger strengths can be achieved by using the mild steel. Then you may have high carbon steel. It is also known as hard steel, tougher and more elastic than the mild steel. It can be forged and welded, and specific gravity in 7.90. It can be used to make the reinforcing bars, tools, and the machine parts. It's very hard as compared to mild steel because it's getting carbon into it. Then, as I have told you, the rolled steel sections, how to make those. The structural steel can be rolled into various shapes. The various shapes to meet the structural requirements designated by their cross-sectional shapes. So if we want a T section, then we can make this type of two sheets, and we can rolled up, mean we can connect these two sheets to making a T section. We may have L section, on the one sheet be there, the simple, okay, that can be bent, okay, so to make the L section in this way. So this L section is as a result of bending of one sheet. This hollow sections, this hollow block section, they generally called as box sections, are made by using simple this sheet and just bending it in 4 ways. And then you may have the wide flange I sections. These are called W sections, okay. And if this flange width is getting smaller, okay, as compared to the web is actually this is an I section. This upper part, this one, this sheet that is in horizontal direction, you can see this sheet, it is in continuation form, making a beam, let's suppose. So this flatter part, above part, top part, is going to be called as flange, okay, and the bottom flange and the top flange. But this inner part, this vertical sheet of the steel material, that is called as web, okay. So if the flanges are wide, mean the width of the flange is much more larger, then we can say it is a W section. This hot rolled section is called as W section. And if it is the flange width is very smaller, then we can say it is I beam or I section. Channel section is C shaped, okay. So you may have the Z sections. This is called Z section, okay. So this is called channel section. So you are having a simple sheet, and by rolling it, okay, by using, let's suppose, this type of the machine, what you can do, this roller is responsible to press the inside of the steel sheet into web, and the flanges will be like this. So you are pressing the material inside of it and making the web, and this shape is going to be maintained from the bottom roller and from the top roller, and these side rollers are to be maintain the shape of this flange. Similarly, different type of the rollers and pressers are available in the field industry to make these type of the sections. So other than the specific shapes, you may have these kind of random shapes. So here you can see this is the twisted one, like this. So if you are going to be draw it, so it will be like this. So this shape will be like this. So depending upon the purpose, it's a design where it can be used. This is T, but the bottom mean the web is hollow. Okay, so these are hollow rolled sections. This is I section, but flanges are hollow. Webs are crippled. इसको हम crippling कहते हैं, जो web आपका होता है थोड़ा सा टेढ़ा मेढ़ा. Flange भी आप इस तरह दे सकते हैं, ठीक है. So here you can see in this figure, this is the shape. Okay, this one. So these are the other shapes that you can make for the hot rolled sections. Now we talk about the reinforcing steel bars. These are mainly used in concrete reinforcement. Okay, so your concrete is good in compression, very good in compression by taking up the compressive loads. So what to do with this? If you have a beam itself, maybe in the previous classes you have been discussed in the structural analysis or like any other mechanics of the materials, that how your beam behaves under the loading. If your beam is resting on the column or any other support, maybe wall or maybe column, then your load on the beam, let's suppose it is acting like this is unit load, so your beam is tends to be bent like this. There will be bending effect. Okay, so what does this bending means? If we talk about this, there will be a central axis. If you are going to be draw a central line, that is usually called as neutral axis, centroidal axis or the neutral axis. If we talk about the stresses, then technically this centroidal axis of this beam is called as neutral axis. So this neutral axis is actually categorized between the compressive stresses and tensile stresses within the beam along the cross section. If we are going to be having the load that is acting downward on the beam, so your beam tends to bend like this. Okay, so what does it means? That above the top part of the beam, these all of the top fibers within the beam, that top surface of the beam, let's suppose, that fibers are going to be compressed inside, if you will see, and the bottom part tends to be give you a tensile stresses moving outward. Okay, so here you are going to be observing the compressive forces and here you are going to be observe the tensile forces. So what should be the marking line or the boundary line? That will be the neutral axis. Above the neutral axis, all of the stresses will be compressive, and below the neutral axis, all of the stresses will be tensile. Okay, so this is going to be happened. Then above the neutral axis, whatever the material is there, if it is a concrete beam, then concrete will be enough to carry the compressive loads, because concrete is very good in compression. But your concrete is very weak in tension. So what we have to do, your beam is going to be give you the cracks, going to be damaged at the bottom. At the top it will be okay, it will be fine, it will not going to give you any cracks, but at the bottom your beam will be cracked, will be ruptured, will be damaged. So what we have to do, your whole structure will be damaged if anywhere the cracks will appear. So what we have to do, we have to provide a certain reinforcement inside the beam. So if I am going to be draw a longitudinal section of the beam separately, then at the bottom of the beam it is going to be requiring the reinforcement, and that reinforcement is going to be provided by using these steel bars. Here also the steel bars be there. So you can see the different extrusions. You may have the plain steel bars, you may have these kind of the ribs on the steel bars. So these are going to be called as deformed steel bars. If you are going to be having different shapes of the ribs, these ribs may be in cross form, these may be the circular one, those may be in the form of scattered points on it. So any type or any shape of the ribs be there on the steel bars, and all of these steel bars are called as deformed steel bars. And plain mean nothing is extruding on it, there is no ribs, there are no ribs on the steel bars. So these are going to be used to reinforce your beam at the bottom. Similarly for the slab, similarly for the columns, wherever we are experiencing by after analyzing our structure or our structural component, beam, column and slab, we have been concluded that the tensile forces are experienced by that particular component, beam, column or mainly the slabs. So we are providing the steel bars over there to reinforce our concrete, and that type of the concrete is called as reinforced concrete, RC. Okay? So reinforced concrete and simple plain concrete is called as cement concrete. Generally we say RCC. RCC is the reinforced cement concrete, and PCC plain is PCC plain cement concrete, in which we are not going to be using the reinforcing bars. Okay, so reinforcing bars are not used in PCC, and where we are using the reinforcing bars, it's called as RCC. So this figure will show you the commercially. Sometimes you may have the steel bar, and this is called as main ribs. You can see these kind of the ribs along the length of the bar you may have, and along the periphery, longitudinal periphery, this circular periphery, you may have the ribs. Okay, and certain letters are imprinted on the steel bars also. So what does it mean? So let's suppose if it is written H, 11, S and 60. So very first will be the letter or the symbol for the producing mills. Sometimes you will observe that whole of the, you can say, name has been written, like Mughal Steels. So Mughal has been imprinting on one side of the steel bar, and if it will be any other company, so it may be imprinted over there. So if it is only one letter, so the very first letter is going to show you the letter or the symbol that is for the producing mills, mean the company that is manufacturing that particular steel. Then you may have certain number, numeric number, okay, relatively smaller, mean 11, 12, 13, 10, 9, 8 in that particular way, not more than 30 or 20, okay, so majorly 20 to 25. Okay, so that is going to represent you bar sizes in number. This 11 mean actually the number 11. So number 11, what does it mean? So if we talk about the system, you can say the foot-pound system. So 11 mean 11 by 8 of an inch. That is the dia of this particular bar. Dia of this bar is equal to number 11. So mean it is 11 by 8. So if it in whole of an inch, you are maybe known with this, that your inch is having the total 16 divisions. So 8 mean half of an inch. So if we talk about or we compare this dimension, or this, you can say, specific value with respect to 1 inch, so it will be 22 by 16, okay, of an inch. So it will be more than 1 inch, number 11 mean. So 11 by 8 of an inch, its diameter. So all the time the denominator will remain 8 all the time. If the bar size is number 8 or number 9, let's suppose, so its mean its dia is 9 by 8. Okay, next is type steel. Which type of the steel it is? It is S, or it will be A, it will be W, it will be double S, it will be CS. There are a variety of that. S is for the carbon steel, A615. This is the standard of ASTM that is going to be followed to make or design that particular carbon steel. Then you may have axial steel, that is after the A996, ASTM standard 996. For low alloy steel, A706. Double S for stainless steel, completely stainless, that is capital A955 standard, after which we are designing it. CS is the low carbon chromium. This is low carbon chromium. It is capital A1075. So you are using these designations for the different type of the steels by after the standard ASTM. Then comes 60. This is the grade mark. what grade mark is. Grade mark mean that this 60 means the 60 in KSI, unit is KSI, it is the yield strength of this particular steel. It is the yield strength of this steel. Now what is this yield strength? We will talk about it later on. Okay, so this 60 mean KSI. 60 KSI is the yield strength. So we are not going to be talk about the yield strength. We are not giving the name with as unit KSI. Just we take out this number out of the yield strength value and we are saying it as the grade of the steel. So grade 40, grade 60, grade 75, grade 80, grade 100, grade 120. So what does it means? This grade 120 is having the largest yield strength. Okay, and similarly the other. So if we talk about the construction steel, mild steel, so for the mild steel, we may have this tensile requirement given in ASTM C615 that the minimum tensile strength should be 60,000, okay, and the minimum yield strength should be 40,000 and the elongation, percentage elongation should be in this limit. So this is just for your information. This is also another table that is going to give you the different bar designation, mean the number 3 bar, as I have told you, diameter, that is number 3, 3 by 8 diameter, number 4, 4 by 8, 5 by 8, 6 by 8, 7 by 8 similarly, and corresponding to that bar designation you can get all the relative information, the nominal weight of this steel bar, the diameter, nominal dimensions, its cross-sectional area, its perimeter, its maximum average spacing if you are putting it into the slab or in column or beams, its minimum average height, its minimum gap. Okay, so all of the required informations are given over here. If you want to use your mild steel as in construction purpose, you can directly go and do the standard and get that table. Now come to the very important point, as I have told you, that yield strength we will discuss later. So here it comes, behavior of the steel under tension. So as I have told you, the stress strain curve. So for the simple metals or other materials like concrete and other type of the metals, you may have the stress strain curve like this. Okay, but for the steel, this stress strain curve is very much you can say different than the other typical stress strain curve. This stress strain curve will give you a very specific linear relationship till the elastic limit. A point will come when you are getting the elastic limit, okay, where you are getting the very straight relationship, linear relationship, direct relationship. After obeying the Hooke's law, between the stress and strain, that relationship will be linear, and that will be up to plastic limit. That is called as proportional limit, or it is called as elastic limit. Both you can say. It will be proportional limit or elastic limit. Okay, so in steel generally we say it as proportional limit. So this proportional limit is after obeying the Hooke's law. I mean, if you are removing the load in between anywhere, so it will come back to its original position. There will be no permanent deformation within the material. So you are having this relationship at first. Then after the proportional limit, so if you are still go on increasing the load, then what is going to be happened? The very you can say your stress strain curve will becomes gradually be non-linear. So it will be curved. Okay, so till the point where you are getting a certain maximum point, and then gradually it is going to be give you a little bit lower value of the loads or the stresses. So this smaller peak, very smaller peak, is going to be called as yield strength, okay, or the yield point, and the stress that you are getting at that particular point, it will be your yield stress or the yield strength of the material. Okay, then after what is going to be happening, the yielding phenomena occurs. Yielding mean that you are very, you can say, lesser variation in the load. The load will be almost constant, but the deflections will be more. like this. Okay, and then suddenly a point will come when it again gradually increasing, and you are getting the ultimate, and then finally rupture. Okay, so this particular region, after the peak, first peak, smaller peak, and when again it started, the load will be almost constant, and then it again start increasing. This particular region is called as yield zone. Yield zone. And the phenomena occurring, the physical phenomena or mechanical phenomena occurring within that particular region is called as yielding. You have to remember this word. This is very important for the steel material. This is called as yielding. So this peak, first peak, as I have told you, this will be corresponds to yield strength. So this yield strength, that's what I have told you, is called as the, in KSI unit, this value is called as the grade of the steel. So if it will be a 40 grade steel, so this yield strength will be 40 KSI. So here on vertical axis you will get 40 KSI, this value for Fy, and this will be the grade of the steel. If it will be 60, if it will be 80, so this will be correspondingly be increased. So the ultimate strength will be much more larger as compared to that. And finally you are getting the rupture, the final failure. This rusting and corrosion, you can read it by yourself. Different alloy steel, you can read it by yourself. And now it is concluded. So this is it regarding the steel material used as in construction purpose. Thank you so much.